I've never done that before. So as you guys heard, I'm a student at Grinnell College and I'm studying psychology and political science. So the talk today is about education and willpower. It's about when you give students an opportunity to learn and make them feel that they're dedicated, make them feel that they should be determined, that basically shapes their life completely, and that kind of shapes the life of their country as well. So I'm from Somaliland, and this is a story about Abarso, the high school that I went about 2009. So after that introduction, I'm going to share my slides with you. So let me just do that real quick. So, as you can see, it's willpower and education. So before I do talking about willpower, what it means to have willpower, I'm going to discuss the society, the context of the society, where Somaliland, how deprived Somaliland is, and how education basically changed the course of the whole nation. So Somaliland is in East Africa. It's in the Horn of Africa, as you can see. It's called a self-declared independent state from Somalia. So Somaliland gained independence in 1991. So after the Somalia Civil War, that basically destroyed the infrastructure of the country, a lot of people struggled with how could we rebuild the country, how could we rebuild the whole nation of the Somalis in general. So as you heard the story, an American guy who was basically a Wall Street banker in the United States decided to make a difference and come back, and he had some connections through his family in Somaliland. And when he came back, he thought maybe the best effective way to make a difference here was through building a school. And he built this school called Abarsa School of Science and Technology, and I will explain more about what this school did personally. But to give you a little bit of more context of Somaliland in general, the average life expectancy is 48 years. That is way below the average of any other country in the world, and it's considered to be one of the most poorest countries in general. So the GDP is about only $6.2 billion, and the poverty haircut rate is about 51.6%. So there's no consumer, no market protection policies. So the reason what I'm telling you is GDP, average life expectancy variables, is to show you how deprived the society is in general. And I'm going to explain how, I mean, the big question here was, how come a deprived society can have such a successful young kids to go to such an elite schools? And you can see the open market here is basically the idea that 76% of the GDP of the whole country basically depends on importing and exporting goods. That basically tells you there are no really natural resources in the country. And the literacy rate is about 37.8%. So this is the context, this is Somaliland. And now the question is, how can we have successful young or youth from this country to be able to make a difference? And that is when education comes to play. But these kids have the willpower. And that is what I'm going to explain later. What does it mean to have a willpower, and what kind of a difference does it make? And then later I'm going to share a personal story. So this is our School of Science and Technology. So the school has basically three main core values: tenacity, reasoning, and integrity. And they all have shared that one common ground of willpower. How tenacious you are, how determined you are, and how critical thinker you are basically shapes how successful you're going to be, not only at Abarso, but also the schools you go to later in life. Your graduate schools, your college schools, your university, which in the end, hopefully, we hope will shape the whole country of Somaliland. And that this idea of integrity basically plays a role where nothing is going to work unless you have integrity first. But they all have that idea of willpower and showing these kids that they can be determined, that whatever effort that they put in, there will be some great results at the end. So the equation here is when you give the opportunity, which is education, and you have this amazing willpower from these students, that basically will create what we call the future leaders of the whole country. So that is the vision that he had for the school, and that is what we were taught when we went to the school. And I remember when I came to Abarso, I did not know any English at all whatsoever. I went to an Arabic middle school, and going to the school basically taught me that it's okay not to know anything, and you can always learn, and you can always do whatever it takes to get there. And that is my definition of willpower. I'm not a scientist, so I don't know whether willpower is part of the brain, whether it's about personality, but I can explain a little bit more later. So the idea was, how can a deprived society like Somaliland can just achieve a huge success in a very short period of time? And the school was basically founded in 2009. It's a really brand new school. So within these couple of years, you had $15 million of scholarships that these students received. You have students going to Harvard, MIT, these amazing universities. Not only that, going to a different wide variety of colleges throughout the United States. And everybody gets like this question of like, how are you able to send kids directly from Somaliland when the data is telling us that this is a very deprived society, when the data is telling us that this is not really one of those places where kids feel like they have an opportunity. So they're trying to understand what happened in between now that we have this huge success and these amazing students. So I thought, when people asked me that question first, I said, I think it has nothing to do with GPA, it has nothing to do with how smart you are or what type of knowledge you have. I said it has to do with your willpower and character, and I said that all these numbers you see that the school have about 82, right now the school have about 82 students currently studying in the United States. I said it has to do with their character. And I said, willpower. So the idea behind the willpower definition was that it had personally, all of us felt the way that we weren't prepared to come to the States, that we felt behind in terms of education, in terms of every way possible. But what made a difference was that idea of, I thought that I could do better, and it's okay to fail. And there were times where we, all of our students, felt overwhelmed with all this amount of information and all the things to know. And another fact to share, I want to share with you was that when we all came to Abarso, we all were behind in general in terms of the American curriculum. So I was told that our math level was basically a third grade level in the United States. So we're basically behind in terms of all different aspects, in terms of science, in terms of math. And then I came to high school here. I spent my last 2 years of high school in the States to take these advanced level courses like AB chemistry, AB biology. And basically I failed my class the first couple of tests. And then basically I thought to myself that it's okay that I know that I'm behind and I didn't have the same resources as these American students, but I can do better. And I spent time studying as much as I can because I felt like also my fate was also changing the fate of the whole country. If I fail, then I'm also failing my community. So that was my concept of willpower. And there was a study recently about this psychologist, which I forgot the name, where she studied this big question of how come certain students succeed after they graduate from school, and how come certain students do not succeed. So she looked at their socioeconomic status, she looked at their GPA, she looked at different parts of what we think would contribute to success. And she found that the most significant variable was willpower, and she called it actually grit and perseverance. And she found that students who had this idea of seeing themselves into the future and having long-term goals were able to succeed better in the real world than those students who basically haven't been able to say the highest GPA in their school. So the idea is for people to look beyond their circumstances and to look beyond the resources that they have and somehow have this positive outlook into the future and say that it's okay that I am from Somaliland and it's okay that I've never had the resources that these American students had, that I'm going to do my best to make a difference. So basically, that is my definition of willpower, and I don't know the real reasoning behind it, but I really think that it is an important aspect of us to learn when we're learning about the brain and mindset. So after that, I'm going to share a personal story of mine that kind of reflects willpower to me. So when I went to the American high school in the States, I was told that there would be a speech competition. One of my friends was participating, and she said, I asked her what she was doing, and she said, I'm memorizing this speech because their speech competition is coming up. And And I said, is it only for domestic students, for only Americans? And she said, I mean, it's open to everybody, but I mean, you're international. English is not your first or second language, so it will be hard because they judge based on pronunciation, they judge based on your tone and everything. And I said, wait, what? So it's open to everyone, basically in the school, but you're telling me only domestic students can participate? So as a joke of me trying to prove her wrong, that I can do it, that I can try it, I signed myself up, and then I thought I'm gonna regret it at the end, because I was like, why would I participate at a speech competition that's basically checked based on pronunciation, based on clarity and all of that? And I'm like, that's crazy. English is not my first or my second language, but I'm gonna do it just to prove her that it's okay, that I can try to. So I participated in the speech competition, and not a lot of international students actually do it. And everybody was like, congratulations for doing this, for trying. Everybody was like, really, this girl has some really guts to stand in front of a whole crowd and basically tell this speech. So everybody was saying congratulations to me. And then a day later, I found out that I was the winner. I was placed first in this whole competition. And if I'm not wrong, people were like, we've never heard of an international student winning this competition. And I felt like that story spoke to my sense of willpower. That it's true that I may not have the perfect, clear English pronunciation, but I guess my willpower was above the average in terms of that school, or in terms of the people who were around me. That I said to myself that I'm gonna do it, and I did it. So that is willpower, is looking beyond your own abilities and making that a difference. So now I want to share a video about Somaliland. So this video was done by documented by a teacher at Abarso, and he basically followed students from Abarso at different levels of their life, and he found out that idea of perseverance and how dedicated these students were to be able to make a difference in their own lives. So the idea was that, yes, the school is successful, these kids are going to these amazing schools like MIT, Harvard, you name it, but the amount of effort they put in is amazing, and that speaks to their own individual sense of willpower. So I hope you enjoy this video.
Jonathan, from the time he was a little boy, always saw the world through a lens that the rest of us didn't have.
He had this idea of starting a school, leaving his life, moving to Africa. I thought he was nuts.
To take a hedge fund manager and put him on the ground in Somaliland and just see where it goes, that's almost unheard of.
The world's most spectacularly failed state, the system was completely collapsed.
Somaliland needs doctors, Somaliland needs teachers, Somaliland needs people who are accountable.
We were doing everything we could possibly do to get students from Somaliland to the best schools in the world.
We were aiming for something that is almost impossible.
Abarso students who get the further education of an American university are going to reach a level where they can create opportunities in society.
I didn't understand why I had to work 10 times as hard as my male counterpart, or why my teacher told me I was half a person with half a brain.
Farah feels as though she and other women in society are not given a fair treatment, and she doesn't appreciate that.
I was the fairest person who went to school in my family system.
Mustafa grew up nomadic. The hopes of his family are greatly relying on him. Amal wants to be a neurologist. Obviously, she's going to have to get educated outside the country.
Honestly, I think it's very likely that I don't get into any of these schools.
It is not enough for him to get accepted to college. He needs a full scholarship.
If she isn't given the opportunity to be educated, it would just be devastating.
In this country, it's a disaster to be a girl.
We have a Somali prophet that says, a girl's home is her house or her grave.
If he doesn't get accepted, he's going to have no options.
I feel a lot of pressure and responsibility.
He could get into Harvard, and he could possibly get in nowhere.
Every single decision is life-changing.
I want to help my people.
There was a lot of tensions among the staff.
The school's on the brink because of this crazy guy who is very powerful.
Our school could close down at any minute.
They will sacrifice anything and everything to get a good education.
When they get to Abarso, they have a chance to have a future.
Our students feel this connection to something bigger.
This is the rest of their life. this was their only option.
Yes, so that basically tells you the story of Marcel. Now I'm gonna talk about not sharing my screen anymore. I'm back. So basically, the idea was that these students are also having their own personal struggles, what it means to be a woman in Somaliland, or the idea that these students, their parents never even went to school. So each one of us have our own path, our own struggles and battles to face, despite the fact that we're all coming from a society that's so deprived in every way possible. And yet they succeed, and yet they found their way, and the hope is for us to go back and make a difference. And after graduating from college, I'm hoping to go back and either work for a public office or do something concerning the psychology field in terms of mental health hospital and all of that. So thank you.